call attention to myself is that it's the first. So that means that every 2 years, there will be another poet laureate in Greenville. So I'm on the campaign, and that was one of the things I wanted to do, but not necessarily be the poet laureate, but hey, I'll take it. Oh, I'm sorry, cell phones. That is me. Bill Withers. Everybody, that's a note to do that. Usually it's my mom. One of my next goals is to be the Poet Laureate of South Carolina, so if anybody got any connections, just go ahead and get the governor. But I wanted to talk to you today about Harriet Tubman specifically, but I wanted to talk to you about the three Harriets, how I came to get to Harriet Tubman. Is that okay? So I'm going to do a couple of poems that are not from the book first, and then I have a couple of slides that we'll show. And I have not spent my time with Harriet in the South Carolina time. That's my next project, is to come down here and live for a little bit. Just to be here, because I feel like when I'm here, I feel her more. Does that make sense? And so that's one of my projects. My daughter said I cannot add any more projects on my list. One of the things that I will say, it's been an honor to be a poet and a teaching artist, and this is my 30th year. And my family had no idea what I was doing because I was a first-generation college student. And I was working on a PhD in counseling psych when I decided, oh, I don't want to do this. And my mom was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, be a poet. She's like, what? You're out of your mind. And I was. You all, I was out of my mind. I was out of my mind, but I was into my what? Heart. I started following my heart. And I've been on this poetry path ever since. And it's not about the publications, the awards, the books. I tell you, it's about the relationships. I have traveled this country via car for 30 years. But my biggest claim to fame is that I am a grandmother. Julian, who is 9, Paisley, who is 2, and Quinn, who is 1. They had Irish twins. Okay. And I tell you, it's one of the best things. How many grandparents do I have in the house? All right, so y'all know of what I speak, right? So I had a very strong relationship with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother. She lived to be 109 years old. Oh, yes, and she was, I don't know if you all know Lawrence or Waterloo. They're from that area. Real country, real country. So I wanted to start off honoring my grandmother and all the grandparents in here and your grandparents or great-grandparents. I think our ancestors are important to honor, especially if you have a positive relationship with them. They live. Where do they live? They live right here. And they, the saying goes, as long as you have memory, as long as you have a story of them, they are still what? Alive. And I had no idea I was going to become my grandmother and my mother. I traveled the country. I couldn't keep a plant alive. I could kill a plant in 3 days. And my mother and my grandmother, they had these great gardens, flowers and vegetables. But come COVID and come an illness, had a serious illness during that time as well, I was home for 3.5 years. Guess what? Guess who started growing? Guess who had not only a green thumb, but a green hand? But it was because of time. And I didn't have time when I was running around, right? And I have a corner that's dedicated to my grandmother. It's dedicated to everything I stick in my garden grows. And it's nothing but red dirt and stones. But they love it. So this is in honor of her. It's called She. Staring into Katie Lattimore's eyes, I go straight into heaven. Rest in a blueness not here on earth. With her, I feel a certain mercy I have never known. She who grew hollyhocks, hydrangeas, and hibiscus and drew every stray cat in the county. She who would not picking cotton grew vegetables in her yard and fished in her spare time. She, Rachel's daughter, her mother, born a slave, bore 16 children. She in those desperate danger times had aspirations beyond the 3rd grade, but she never made it to that one-room schoolhouse. Her knowledge was of another understanding, a candle lit by the Almighty. When I'm wise, I sit there and study her blue flame, how she smoked her Winston 100s, and held a little and let the ash grow until it fell like withered dreams beneath her feet. How she drank her Coca-Cola like medicine, loved her potato sweet, made me through my mother, through and through until I am what I am. It is why I have a penchant for all things old. I am not particular about the new. It is why I gave birth to 2 incredibly old women. I call them the Delaney sisters. It is not their spirit, it is their spirit, not their age. I'm not calling my mother's mother a saint, but is there anybody living who would want to walk in Katie Lattimore's shoes? She deserves the glory of these words and any respite they might bring. Her jet black ambition tied to her hands, her running feet running through cane fields, cotton fields, always somebody else's sharecrop land. She deserves to run, fight, to battle no more, lay it all down by the riverside. But she's in the nursing home with the rage burning bright. Because I know, because sometimes she won't let no white hood touch her. But when I leave her, she whispers in my ear, loves everybody, child. No matter how black, how blue, how brown, how white, loves everybody. For in those times, she was running water, clearing that ingrown South. The revolution never happened, not even now. She was and is the point of my inspiration, telling me the revolution isn't staying alive. I'm not sure what happened to her 109 years of living in the South. I only know she's closer to God than anyone I have ever known. Imagine lasting heartache after heartache, outlasting the death of almost everyone. Imagine lasting 109 years and having no monuments erected in your name. What are we going to say to that woman? We're going to look around and pretend she's not there? What are we going to say? What are we going to do? If we want to be well, we sit down and we listen with more than our ears. I understand my grandmother so much more now that I'm a grandmother because my grandmother was always trying to feed us. And my grandson, I'm always running around here, are you hungry? Would you like something to eat? And I said, oh my goodness. To want somebody to eat is more than just wanting them to eat, isn't it? It's about what? It's about love. And those meals, do you remember the meal that someone made you that was your meal? And you wish you could have it today, made by their hands? I call them the deathbed meals. You know, what you would have on your deathbed. They say, what do you want? You know, I'd be like, I just want my mama's grits, salmon croquettes, with some little cheese and a pat of butter and a biscuit on the side. Oh, I'm hungry. Okay. So I want to, before I get into the Harriet Tubman poems, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about me as a poet and an artist, and why do I go back to the 1800s? Why would I do that? You know, I'm born that way. That's the poet's job. In Africa, they have a mystical bird called Sankofa. Anybody heard of Sankofa? Sankofa is that mythical bird, but their head is always turned back. Why do you think the bird's head is always turned back like that? Anybody have an idea? Yes, sir.
Because it's looking in the past?
Give him a round of applause. Sankofa is looking to the past, and it says, do not be afraid to go get it. And so I was always that curious child. Around your age, younger even, I always wanted to be around the old folks. Because you know why? They told the best stories. And they would tell juicy stories too, and that's when my mom would say, get out of here and stop looking at grown folks now. I just wanted to sit there and soak it up. Soak it up. And I was a very different child. They called me an old soul. And, you know, you heard that, right? And I was that old soul. And the thing is, I had stories that I wanted to gather, stories that I wanted to connect with. And I'm so glad I did. So this poem right here, and I wasn't just an artist when I was 8 or 9, probably 6. I was also something what we call a HSP. And I don't know if you guys have heard that term. It means highly sensitive person. And a highly sensitive person is someone who feels everything. You walk in a room and I start feeling happy, and I don't know why I'm happy. but it's because you're happy and I can pick up on your feelings, right? Or I walk in a room and something horrible has happened in that room and I feel all of a sudden sad. And if you don't know what an HSP is, you think it's you. You think you're being, but it's actually you connecting with the world, you connecting with others. We don't like bright lights, we don't like loud sounds, we do not like horror movies. Anybody with me in here? Okay. I come from a family who love horror movies, and let me tell you the worst thing, I would never watch The Omen or The Exorcist, but they would watch all that stuff, right? You know what's worse than watching a horror movie? It's not watching a horror movie and listening to the soundtrack in your bedroom. That's the worst, okay? But I say all that to say, to set the context of why I go back. Sankofa, highly sensitive person, that happens to the land too. Like when I'm walking on the land, I can feel things that have happened. And it's not magic, it's just connecting. It's just a connection, we're all connected. So this is the poem in my book, The Listening Skin, that talks a little bit about me and others. And this book is dedicated to other HSPs. And it's called Make No Apologies for Yourself. Dear you, make no apologies for yourself, because you are covered in a listening skin, because every ache you feel is not your own, because the bowl of sorrow your mother carries, because of your father's wildfire moods, because of how many rivers they cross, because of the lynching tree, because when you enter bookstores, volumes fall off shelves into your open palms, because you ask questions of the universe and it opens before you like a page, because you can read the sky, those clouds, and that murder of crows, because poets are your wounded idols, because the truth, even if it hurts, it is to be cherished and held. And just because people die does not mean they don't walk with you daily, because the river has a mouth that speaks their names, because the river flows with stories, because alone is more comforting than being together, because your pen is oceanic, because you are eyes wide, equipped with outer and inner sight, because you suffer from what you see and hear, and because you have sinus arrhythmia and your breath is short, because asthma is one of the monkeys on your back this lifetime, because it can go, your heart is the vehicle you choose to ride this go round, because it can go forward and backwards in time, because bookstores are your oracles, because poetry is your greatest archaeological tool, because you plummet even though you can barely swim, because you trust the ride of journal and journey, even if you do not always float, because your heart beats to your breath, because of this music, you dance raw and wild. So I want to turn to talking about Harriet. But before I get here, I want to talk about the three Harriets. So we know Harriet Tubman is our most famous Harriet, right? But do you all know who the other Harriets are on here? Do they look familiar? The one on the bottom is from Edenton, North Carolina. Her name is Harriet Jacobs. She hid in her attic for 7 years from her owner. 7 years. It was her grandmother's attic, and she finally escaped. It was a white woman who helped her escape, and she put her on a ship to Boston. She became a writer and an abolitionist. And then the other woman, most people don't know either, her name is Harriet E. Wilson, first African novelist. And she was an amazing woman. She was never a slave. She was mixed race. And her mother had to give her up to a family as a servant when her father died. And they didn't treat her really well, but she ended up becoming very educated and writing the first book. And it's a powerful story. And so I got this idea to put all the Harriets together, even though they wouldn't have met. You know, the imagination of a poet. I thought, hey, how about the three Harriets? Actually, in this picture, there's a fourth Harriet, but you can't see her. There's no photograph. Where do you think it is? Yes.
On the cover?
On the cover, yes, it's the quilt. You guys are cooking with Crisco. Can we get a round of applause? But maybe not Crisco now. I don't think it's politically correct to cook with Crisco. But it do make everything taste better. But my doctor has warned me. Okay. Yeah, that is Harriet Howard. She was a quilter, an enslaved quilter from Georgia. Isn't that a beautiful quilt? It's amazing. She could not write, she was illiterate. Just like a lot of my foremothers who could not read or write, they were quilted. And so I happen to have some of their quilts, and I feel I just rub my hands on the quilt because I think that they are telling me their stories through the quilt. So those are the three areas. And so these three women, myself, the woman in the front is Lynette Overby. She's a professor at University of Delaware, and Gabrielle Foreman, who is a professor at Penn State. We started sharing these stories, and then we thought, well, we're not going to keep these stories to ourselves. We are going to actually give them away to school students and to the community. So Lynette teaches dance, and Gabrielle is an African-American literature expert. So she would do the scholarship, and I would do the poetry, send the poetry to Lynette, and her students would dance the poems. And this is one called Three Harrietts, and they all are portraying. I'm not, for the sake of time, I brought the video along, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to show the video, but I can share the link where you can find it. Okay? So we get to our woman, right? Harriet Tubman. So I'm going to share my work with her. And I wanted, when I wrote the poems for all the three Harriets, the dancers accused me of loving Harriet Tubman more. They were not wrong. And that's no disrespect to Harriet Jacobs or Harriet Wilson. She just, I don't know, there's something about her. And the more that I thought about it, I realized that she looks like my grandmother. Can you see the resemblance? And so I said, you love your grandma and you love Harriet Tubman, and they remind you of each other. So I am going to share the poem that I wrote for Harriet Tubman. And know that Harriet Tubman was born in Dorchester, Maryland in the 1820s. And we'll talk a little bit more about her timeline in a minute. But I want to share a poem, one of the first poems I wrote for the book, and it's called Every One of My Names. Everybody knows she went by a lot of different names. Did you all know that? Did she went by other names? Okay, so some of you will recognize the different names and labels that she was called by. And that's why I wrote this poem. Her talking and telling you about her names, okay? Every one of my names. Every one of my names I earned, except the first, given to me at birth. Didn't make too much to it because it sounds like a flower growing in the field. Araminta, got God's covering. I keep the prayer and music from it. For short, they call me Minty. I like how that sing. It got more of my sting. I stood up to the master no matter who was wrong. Master head-butted me into dreams and visions, took Tubman from my man. My husband left me because he wanted me to stay put. He wanted me rooted to his need and the cabin. One of these times I was gone, I came back, he's in the arms of another woman. He asked me in the middle of my heart with that. Lord knows I loved him. Lord knows he loved me too, but I was meant for more. I was meant for the many. They calls me Harriet. I took Harriet from my mama. Her love circled around me like my wrap around my head, like my shawl hugs my shoulders. They call me brave, because I wrap my long arms around my peoples. This is how I stand, rooted and ready for battle. This is how I love, fitted for fight. My face is not fixed on pleasing. What good is a smile in war? I'm busy with battle. Call me conductor too, because I head this foot train. With hounds at my bloody feet, I runs and I runs and I runs. I told Frederick Douglass once, I ain't never lost a passenger. I know which way is north with my ear to God's mouth. General, too, they call me, because I be the head where no woman's supposed to be. I outsmart every slaver's hunt. Fear for what? Once I break chains, I release their minds on being a slave next. No matter what they call me, I'm on a mission. If they even thinking about turning back, I point pistol to head and say a dead Negro tells no tales. This is how my spirit rise up. My fire be both a curse and a blessing. This fire burns and never stuffed out. They call me Moses. My people must go free. They whisper spy too, because I got my hands in so many plots. They give me names, most of them managed, but by God's grace I go with a long skirt and with these able hands to answer every call. All woman. Harriet, when I started writing about her, I realized that she just had so much to say. And so I'm going to read a couple of poems that as you can see, I put my, I'm in the mind of her, which is called a persona poem. And do you guys know the story of her being hit in the head? So she was hit in the head. She survived that blow, not fatal, but she survived it. But what happened to her, she would pass out and have spells. And they think that these spells were her talking to God, right? And she believed that, and when she would faint, she would know where to go. They feel like that's why she was never caught. That was part of it. There was other stuff that was going on with Harriet that was quite complicated, because she was a spy, too. But before that, she felt like she was in communion and had foresight. So I talk about her in a couple of poems called Freedom Spells, okay? And this first one is called Freedom Spells 1. And this is about her younger life, telling you a little bit about her story. Deep brown, crooked switch of a gal, born under a serious, bright, but sickly star. Measle pop, faints a lot, me a sight, hair never seen a comb. When I feel my head or catch my likeness in a lake, my hair is standing up around my head like a bushel basket. Gal, mostly still baby, but no slave, stay a child for long. My mama do her best with what she had to make me well again. Victuals and a bit of the Bible she done learned, she feed me both. I growed in and out of fever and whatever else was ailing. Owned by Massa Cook, his face scrunched like a rabid dog all the time. When I'm weak, he made me wade out in the water and fetch muskrats. Almost drowned him. He said, you ain't worth 6 pence, or yeah, I sell you down the river. I closed my eyes and shut my ears, my way of spitting on that. This one I become I, not she. Like that old oak standing out there in the yard, firm in her roots. What hold her steady helped me hold my ground. They call me to the house though. I hate every wall. I call it a cage in my mind. So you know what that make me. Can't stand Mrs. Reach either. Seem like her eyes be everywhere at once. Her command too. She tell me when to take in air and when to let it out. Everything at my reach, but none of it mine. I stole a little taste of sugar once, one lump, because I ain't never had nothing sweet on my tongue. I got lashed for that. I patted myself with as much cloth as I could find. So when she whooped me, I commenced to hollering and caterwauling, but I do's what I got to do. I last on the inside, just something between me and my maker. 5 feet even in everything the Lord done put in me. Stubborn. My giddy up don't go unless I say so, or the Almighty. Fill over house any day. I knows my way around every inch of work. Hoist flour bags break flax, pick cotton with eyes closed. My weight be slight, but my muscles, they be strong. With the Almighty on my side, who will get me? In the field, I feel strength in my arms and my legs. Feel what my mama poured into me. The soil under my feet and my lungs full of clear air. I earned more than I ever owed. I put them coins away till they collect. I buys not a pretty dress, but 2 steers. When riding, I hold reins, and I sip the air as I need. I'm going to read to you the Harriet spells. There's another Harriet spells too. Harriet spells too. And what I was doing with Harriet, one of the books that really inspired me, and I highly recommend if you want to learn more about Harriet. Oops. There it is. But that's the book. It's Harriet Tubman. It's by Catherine Clinton. And this is one of the most definitive books on Harriet Tubman. And what I did to write these poems, I went through all the things that she had that were said from Harriet's mouth. So a lot of the words you're hearing in poems are not my words. I framed the poem, you know, of course I wrote the poem, but then I put her language in there, as she would say. She was quite poetic, I thought. And I, you know, again, I think she sounds like my grandmother. Freedom spells too. Words full of heat, that where the power be, if they come from the right place. So I set my mouth to pray, speaks with my whole self, to pray Master's Broder's heart open. With this tool, I speak in Jesus' name. I do my best to wrench the devil's hole. I praise without ceasing from sun up to moon out. I hold fast, I mumble. Sometimes I shout in the field. If my heart takes to sing, I sing, come by here, Lord, come by here. See if this song be a key to open the gate. Release this 5-finger grip, Lord. We bound by the law, though it is crooked as a creek. We's worth more than the money we put in his pocket, but greed speak louder than truth to him. Greed be winter. Greed be cold wrong, holding us against our time. We done wet these fields with sweat and tears and blood. Scotch flax, toted lumber, our feet done walk every step of this ground. When the Lord don't turn Master's mind, I turn. Change my prayer to curse. Lord, if you ain't never gonna change his heart, kill him. He died soon after. I say the word be power. Got a mind which way you use it. Cut 2 ways. I wept on it a little, but that was just a passing thought. Because I fixed my mind on how he kept my mama 10 years longer as a slave. I study on that. Wipe my mind clear. I fix myself. Take marching orders from the Almighty. He speaks, I rise up. He ain't got to tell me but once to flee. This is a shorter poem that I wrote. I just went into really thinking about what it had been like. Yeah, I'll do a few more poems, and then if you guys have questions, I would love to talk to you. This is a short poem. It's called Harriet Spells for Shift Shaping. And I was like, she had to do, what was going on with her? How could she not be caught? Like, those, to me, that is just magical, right? And so here's the small poem that I put in here. Being looked over, around, and through my best weapon. Turn into whatever the time of day called for. Pitch black step, slip into owl or a hawk, turn tree trunk because the hound chasing you. Lead the pack to river edge, invisible. Brown bird, always best. Morning dove, crow, sparrow, rails, crate scoots. Like an old black woman, they expect nothing but an old slave. Look closer, common brown bird. Last time I checked, brown birds got wings too. I'm just going to read a couple more. And like I said, I'm reading out of this book that is called The Three Harrietts. Yeah, I want to close with the book that I put in the end, the poem that I put at the end, which is called, I'm going to read this one and then close with a non-Harriet poem. This one is Spells for Zero Captures, because her record was great, right? So this is what her talking to you about how she didn't get caught. Spells for Zero Captures. Conduct like I ain't trying to die. Leave when the moon new, sky dark. Listen to what's on my inside, cause it don't lie. When my chest flutters, I know danger lurks. Change course. No, I can't die but once. But ain't trying to do that just yet. Don't speak on nothing. Proud talk gets you dead. No need for I did this and I did that. No peacocking. Blend into tree trunk. Travel during winter. Buy time. Saturday night rewards for runaways, not in paper till Monday morning. Got a whole day before they expect we gone. Read people and the land like white people read books. When I have a spell, shout not. Don't fight, deep sleep. Go into the body quake. Visions and dreams be how God directs my path. Follow the map that my inside knows. Let God talk. No open field in daylight. Know the coast like I know the woods. Light in window, no trails, cover footsteps. Don't give in to that coon dog and guns. Quiet steps, silence. Give babies the root, paregoric. My grandma Modesty came over on the boat from Africa. She knows the earth holds medicine. Don't tarry. Make friends are weary and tired. They don't lead no how. You'll be free or die. Listen to the old ways. Don't turn back. Trust the Quakers. But carry a loaded gun anyhow. Curse slavers. Never wound a snake. Kill it. God's time. Emancipation is always near. He set the North Star in the heavens. He gave me strength in my limbs to follow where his light leads. So my last poem, I wanted to, I don't know why I want to be in the play button. But that's the timeline. I just wanted to do a timeline for you all so you can kind of see her story laid out in bullet prints. So Dorchester County. She marries John Tubman. That's the one who left her. He was a free man. He was a free man. And then she flees to Pennsylvania. And then Tubman begins her work as a conductor. And that was the 1850s. After all that going back and forth, there's a lot of speculation about how many times. Some say 17, some say 19, some say as high as 20, about how many times she came back. She settles in Auburn, New York, and joins the abolition movement. And she also purchases a home and lives there for many years. She became a nurse, a cook, a spy for the Union Army, and then very closely, during that time, that's when she came to South Carolina, the Combahee raid, right? And that number fluctuates too, raid over 700 enslaved people. But Tubman remarries. Did y'all know that? She remarried in 1869 Nelson Davis, who was, I believe, 25 years younger than her. I'm not mad at you. And then, I know, right? 1870, Tubman adopts a daughter named Gertie, and she's in that picture on the front, and I can pull it back up, but she's a mixed race child. And the next poem I'll be writing is based on that picture. I'll pull it up and see if you can see it, because I think the composition of her husband and her adopted daughter and herself is very interesting to me as a poet. So he dies before she does, and then in 1896 she publishes her memoir, Scenes in the Life of Harriet Tubman. And then so March 10th, Harriet Tubman goes back to her maker. And so I want to close out with a poem that it's about all the Harrietts, and it's about what I feel about their walks. What's so interesting about Harriet Jacobs and Harriet E. Wilson, they both were literate. Harriet Tubman was not literate. So her story had to be what? Told. And so it's only what's been passed. So there's not many primary sources. That's why I think Catherine Clinton's book is so wonderful, that she's the one who's done the definitive work on her and got as much information as she could about Harriet. But what's so interesting about these two other women wrote books. Harriet Tubman has a book published, she didn't write it, and was illiterate, but who is the standout? Harriet Tubman. You know, it's not just her courage, it's also her generosity. She had a lot of benefactors. She had a lot of abolitionists that gave her money, that gave her clothes, helped her buy her house, all this stuff. And you know what they would say to her? Do not give it away. Because everything someone gave to her, she would give it. She would give the coat off her back to other people. So that generosity of spirit is, I think, what makes Harriet Tubman so remarkable. You are a warrior, but you also love community. You love the people in your community. And to me, that is one of the most powerful forces on the planet. And I think love is what connects us as a community. Even in divided times, we are, like Maya Angelou says, we are more alike than we are unalike. And I don't know why as humans we cannot figure that out. We are one family. And Harriet Tubman knew that. My grandmother knew that. I would go visit her at her house, and she would have some of everybody sitting on her couch watching wrestling. And don't tell her it wasn't real, because she believed it was real. And so that's another connection that I draw between the two of them. Let me see if I can pull this. I don't know if I can pull it up, the picture. It's very small. Is that Siri? Can you see it in the corner down on the left? It's small. I wish I would have made it bigger. I'm sorry. But she has a tambourine or a tambourine in her hand. Her hands are full. What is her posture like? Can you see it? It's kind of folded over. And what? This is my next poem. Why do you think her posture is like that? She's on the left. She's on the left, and she's kind of hunched like that. She's got the hat on. Why would she be like this in a photograph? What is she doing?
She don't want to stand out.
She don't want to stand out. Which is, she's already done all the remarkable feats. And this woman doesn't want to stand out. So I don't know if it's still like her condition, don't get caught, or it's not about me. It's about everybody else. This is the last poem close to the last poem in the book. It's called Sketch. Draw the face so we may stare at the rotten teeth truth. Give yourself a pristine mouth to say your piece. A crude doorway into a home on history's page where you're not hemmed in at the margin. No begging or bowing, stand in your place. Ink your existence firm out of the shadows. Make history one deliberate letter at a time. not as a slave, but not fully free either. Right it the best you can, with a determined hand, right the wrong. Write it. Press your free hand upon parchment. Spill ink like night clouds that clot what your soul cannot hold. Catch what history hurls. Double your fist in defiance. Unfurl the world into long lines. Get straight to the point. Pen every deed. Record the heavy dreams that woke you each morning. Press down. The paper can bear your weight. Make the paper speak of backbreak. Let your quill quiver with nothing less than the meat of it. Wick the naked flesh of the past like you were slashed. Bleed deep. Gash history. Even if it must stand on hobbled legs. Press your free hand on your heart. Unbind your mind, no matter how the hand wavers. This is how perfect penmanship feels. One liberated turn after the other. Head the helm. Write your ending. Write the sky. Burn through fog, mist, and muck. Through your eyes, pen a new horizon. Pulled and drawn by your own hand. Thank you. Would y'all like to talk? We got a couple minutes. Would y'all do you have questions about my process or any of the Harrietts or being a grandmother or anything like that? Yes, sir.
Did Harriet operate like, she must have operated under deep cover?
Yes.
And I mean, was she a known entity after some point? Were people aware that she was singularly the one?
Yeah, she was with, she was in the military. I mean, she was an operative. So
right.
People knew that. And I think at some point, like later after, I mean, people knew her story. But especially when she was here, she was with the 2nd Carolina Infantry. And, I think she pushed for payment as a veteran and never received it. And so that to me is another poem in the making that she never got to do, So, and that the raid on the Combahee, she was the, even though she was working with the military, ship, air, all of the stuff that they were doing. Not here, but she was the major force in that. And she said her 3 years in South Carolina was rough because she couldn't understand the enslaved people. She said, because she didn't have the rhythm, she didn't have the ear. There was some commonality, but not completely. I mean, she's from Maryland. She had a different language, so she said it would, but she was very determined while she was here. And, there were 10,000 enslaved, and there were 200 plantations. And they call it that raid, they called it the Big Gun Shoot. And you know what's odd about the Big Gun Shoot? It happened on November 7th, and that's my grandmother's birthday. So I keep making the connections between, I know there's gonna be a poem, Grandma and Harriet, or Katie and Harriet, right? So she was indeed a remarkable woman. And she was known and she was really respected in the military as well. And she befriended the people too, and they trusted her. And so and like I said, her thing was not to stand out, her thing was to fade into the shadow and make sure the operation was bigger than who she was.
How are you, Glenis?
I'm good.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's been a few years.
Yes, it has.
You mentioned how giving Harriet Tubman was, and many of the people here from Georgetown know that she has a connection to Georgetown.
Right.
So many of her abolitionist friends and suffrage movement helped her, but Harriet Tubman's nephew, the first person she's freed, is from Georgetown.
Right.
And when he became the school commissioner way back in 18 whatever,
Right.
She raised money for the students in Georgetown, sending clothing and food and supplies, because he was the commissioner, and that was the only way at the time he could get supplies. So we celebrate that in Georgetown.
Right.
She never set foot here, but she was so proud of James Vogel, who was 3 years old, 6 years old when
Right.
she freed him. So good.
That's a beautiful connection, right? And that's, I mean, that play space is so important, and it's why it's so important for this to be also taught in schools as well, for young people to know that history.
Absolutely.
Because it's a proud history, and it's a generous history.
Yeah.
And this woman, the more you learn about her, the more gifts you get. So I encourage for you to put your head down and read whatever you can that's out there. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
I guess it's two parts. Are you aware of your poetry being taught in schools, and do you anticipate problems with that? I was reading about the teacher in Greenville, but
I get
it's
to.
a horrible story.
It's tough, yeah. Yes, my work is in textbooks. It's in, I haven't come up against it yet, but I write about my history. I write about my life. It's not critical race theory. It's my heritage. It's my family. I'm writing about my family. I'm writing about unknown figures. There's a virtual school, SC Virtual School, just reached out to me to publish 3 of my poems and write curriculum to them. So I say yes to everybody who wants it, and I don't say no. But I can only be true to myself, and I'm with teachers. I stand with teachers in this hard time. One of the things I do is I'm a little free library lady, so I raise money to, I see you all have one out here, and I donate little free libraries. And there's one place who chose not to receive a little free library because of the climate. And it broke my heart, because without the library, I would not be standing in front of you today. You all, I lived in rural Greenville, actually Piedmont, South Carolina. My school library, the public library, which was 20 minutes away, so we had a bookmobile. And I ran after the bookmobile like most kids ran after the ice cream truck. But I tell you, all of those were paving stones for me to walk on to get where I am. So I'm just frustrated, like many of us are, because I think without those books, I traveled way before I ever, left my town. So, yes, it's unfortunate. Yes.
How many poems did you make?
How many poems have I made? Thousands and thousands of poems. All of them don't end up. I started writing when I was in 8th grade. And so a lot of them are just in journals. If you saw me coming over here, I always have my journal with me. This is a cute one my sister gave me for my birthday. But in it, it's so weird. It's just an ordinary composition book. Y'all know the little black and white composition book looks like a cow? Yeah, that's what I use. I don't use anything fancy. And the reason I don't like fancy books is because I want to write every day, and I want to just make it like an everyday thing. So I write. Mrs. Sargent is the one who told us to write, and I started writing in the 8th grade. I had never stopped. And so I have, do the math, I'm 60, started when I was 13. That's how many journals, how years of journals I have. And I have more than 1 per year. I usually go through like 3 per year. And so all my thoughts, my dreams, my next poems, she's doing the math, she's over there. That's sweet, because I'm not going to do it, because I'm a poet. But it was writing and reading that saved my life. And so some poems will never make it out because they were horrible when I started. They were horrible little poems, But I'm glad I started with those horrible little poems. But the big thing in my family and in my community, I started writing poetry, and my community took me seriously. My friends wanted me to write a poem for them. They would stand in line. Well, I wrote down their demographics, all the stuff, your favorite color, who you had a crush on, all of that kind of stuff. And I would come back and have a poem for them. And they would request that. And then at my church, when somebody died, they called my parents home and asked for a 13-year-old. And I would take everything about that person who passed and write a poem for them. And then at the funeral, I would come and do the elegy poem. for them. So I was taken very seriously at 13, and I'm still on that path trying to make good on my community believing in me. Yes?
When you first started, were you doing traditional poetry that rhymed and had iambic pentameter and all that?
I was never a traditionalist or a formalist. Of course, that was the first poetry I encountered.
Right.
You know, my dad would, bless you, my dad recited Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. I mean, I guess they learned it in school. You know, that's back when you memorized poetry. But I started writing. I did have some rhyming poetry, and I did that. I did meter. But when I started in my 30s to be a professional, I went free verse. Now in this book, The Listening Skin, and in The Three Harrietts, there's formal poetry in there as well. But you can't always tell. It's not really necessarily rhyming, but it's form. Like I use a form called a Quansamba, which is an African-American form. It's a new form invented by Dr. Eugene Redmond, no relation. And Quansamba, does that sound like anything to anybody? Quansamba. What? Kwanzaa. Yeah. Yeah, that's what he named it for, Kwanzaa. So it's a 7-line poem, 7 words in each line, no word over 7 letters unless it's a formal noun. So, yeah, you're like, cool, yeah. So, homework, I want you guys to write your first Kwanzaa, okay? All right, so it's a really beautiful tribute form. So when I started writing tributes, I thought, oh, I should use an African-American form to honor these folks, you know? And so I will be writing more Harriet poems. Like I said, I'll be focusing on the South Carolina life. And the Three Harrietts will become part of a larger collection, which will be mostly Harriet Tubman. And, but my form of choice is free verse. But I love, the older I get, the more I go, I love forms. But when I was earlier, I was like, I don't need a form. You can't keep me in a cage. The older you get, you're like, form is nice, you know. I don't need to be, you know, I don't have to be all the way out there. I can be here. So form is beautiful as well. Yes?
I just wanted to say thank you. You're a teaching artist and a literary citizen. That's a new phrase I saw up there, but you absolutely are that. And I'm so happy that we had youngsters here to be inspired by you and to see, you know, that this is what you can do with writing and with poetry and to, you know, get going. So thank you for that. But I did want you to say maybe a word about, we know about Three Harrietts,
Yes.
you know, 3 for the price of 1, 3
Yes.
Harrietts in here. But what about you also brought with you the book, Praise Songs for Dave the Potter. Could you say a little something about that
I should
amazing
have brought
potter?
one of those from the room over there.
Yeah, it's on sale here.
Yes.
Incidentally.
I'll pay you later. Okay.
Yeah.
So first, let me say to you young people, you are on fire, and I'm happy to see you and answering and so inquisitive. I continue to be curious. That's all I say. I mean, that's the best advice I can give. Continue to be curious. I wish I could have brought my grandson, Julian, who goes by Sidon. We don't know why. But we go to all the state parks because he's a big gamer. I don't know if y'all into games or anything like that, but he's a big gamer. He's like Roblox and Dragon Ball Z, stuff he shouldn't be doing at 9. But so during COVID, thank you so much. I said, I got to get this kid out of the house. He does not need to be in the screen all the time. So we just started, I said, let's get a state park pass. And we just go to all the state parks. And now my other project is I'm writing poems for every state park in South Carolina. I got too many projects, y'all. But this project I really would love to let you know about because it is called Praise Songs from David Drake. And does anybody recognize this painting? Who this painting might be by? Your own Jonathan Green. And so Jonathan Green is one of the people who put me on my path as a poet. I was a counselor, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. I had a chronic illness, fibromyalgia, and I was like, I couldn't lift my head up. I was in so much pain. And Jonathan Green came to Greenville, and the community got together about one of his paintings, The Christening. And I formed a relationship with him, talking to him and just, you know, admiring his work and being inspired by him. And, you know, born with a call, he has that gift inside. He looked at me and said, why are you counseling? You're a poet. And I had not told anybody that I was thinking about leaving the counseling field. So this is David Drake, the enslaved potter poet. How many know of him? He's from Edgefield, South Carolina. He could read and write. We don't know why, but his owner owned a printing press, and we surmise that David Drake had to clean the printing press, and he was learning his ABCs. Not only did he just learn his ABCs, he became a poet. Where did he put, he wrote 2-line poems, he wrote couplets. Where do you think he put his poems? Yeah, you got it. On his plots. His most famous couplet is, I wonder where is all my relations, friendship to all in every nation. You're not supposed to be writing, but you put a bulletin up like that. So yeah, this is my latest book. It is a collaboration with the 3 women, the other 2 women that you saw up there, so it's, and also Jonathan Green. So I wrote to all, Jonathan Green in the 90s painted, I think it's 18 paintings, and I wrote to all 18 paintings, and they're in here. And there's a scholarship here, and then the project of them dancing, of the students dancing as well. So I'm really proud of this. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, Dan, for that plug. And there was one more question before we close.
Here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, do you write at specific times, or you just write on the spirit of the moment? You have your time set aside to write, or how do you do that?
Yes. I write at a specific time, and then I write all the time when the spirit calls. Because I'm not one of those, I gotta wait for the muse to hit. The muse, it will leave you if you're just sitting and waiting, for a moment to strike. I mean, those moments do strike, but the big thing is hard work. It's just sitting 6 hours a day, sitting and working. And right now I'm working on a book of essays called, right now this is the working title, Raised by Hand, a Poet's Memoir and Poetry and Essays. And it's just 6 days just writing, 6 hours. That's the tedious stuff. By the time I got here, the poems are my friend, I can give them away. But some of them come hard, some of them come easy. And people don't see that kind of work that goes into it. You have to be obsessed, you have to be compulsive, which I am, and but I find it's necessary.
What's the link to the dance video?
The link to the dance video is 12 minutes. And if you go to Sharing Our Legacy, and one of the reasons I didn't play it, because there's students in there is some language in there, not bad, but just what one of the women were called. But it's a beautiful, Sharing Our Legacy, and if you go there, it will say, it will say the 3 Harrietts. So just press on the one that says the 3 Harrietts. It's quite beautiful, because it takes poetry to dance, which dance elevates everything. And you'll be taken by these young women. And Ikira Peace, the one who dances Harriet Tubman, is related to Harriet Tubman. And she's about this little. And she is fierce. I believe, I know it's in your blood, So if you get a chance, please watch it. You all have been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.